Welcome, everyone. Today we're looking at something quite interesting in metabolic health, a new oral medication called Orforglipron.
That's right. It's from Eli Lilly, the same company behind injectables like Zepbound and Mounjaro, and they've just released some phase 3 trial data.
Phase 3. Okay, so this is getting serious, and it's aimed at both type 2 diabetes and weight loss.
Exactly. So the trial results give us a good look at how effective it might be and also how safe it is. That's what we'll unpack today.
Sounds good. And if you're finding this topic as fascinating as we do, maybe take a second now to hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps us out.
Definitely. So where should we start? Maybe the diabetes results.
Yeah, let's dive into the efficacy for type 2 diabetes first. The trial involved adults with the condition, correct?
Yes. And the primary thing they measured was the change in A1C levels, that average blood sugar marker.
Right, the standard measure. What did they find after the 40 weeks?
Well, the results were quite promising. Participants taking various doses of orforglipron saw their A1C drop, on average between 1.3% and 1.6%.
Okay, 1.3 to 1.6%. How does that compare to, say, doing nothing or a placebo?
Big difference. The placebo group only had an A1C reduction of about 0.1%. So clearly the drug was having a significant effect.
That is a significant difference. Was there anything else noteworthy about the A1C results?
Yes, actually. For those on the highest dose, over 65% of them reached an A1C level of 6.5% or lower.
And 6.5% is the threshold the American Diabetes Association uses for diagnosis, isn't it?
Precisely. So getting below that is a major milestone for many patients. It suggests pretty effective blood sugar control with this medication.
That's impressive. What about the participants themselves? Were they already on other treatments?
Good question. No, the study design made sure they hadn't taken other anti-diabetic drugs for at least 90 days beforehand, and none had used insulin previously.
I see. So it isolates the effect of orforglipron itself. Makes sense.
Right. It gives a clearer baseline. Now, besides blood sugar, they also look closely at weight loss.
Yeah, that's often a linked benefit, especially with this class of drugs, the GLP-1 agonists. What did the weight loss data show?
It was a key secondary goal.
Yeah.
And again, pretty encouraging results. People on the highest dose lost an average of 16 pounds over those 40 weeks.
16 pounds. Wow. What does that work out to in terms of percentage body weight?
About 7.9% of their starting body weight on average.
Okay, nearly 8%.
And the placebo group?
Much less, as you'd expect. They lost an average of just under 3 pounds, which was about 1.6% of their body weight.
So a clear difference there, too. Did they mention if people were still losing weight at the end of the 40 weeks?
They did. The company indicated that participants hadn't really hit a weight plateau by the end of the study.
Oh, interesting. So potentially staying on it longer could lead to even more weight loss?
That's the suggestion, yes. Further reduction might be possible with continued use.
How does that 7.9% weight loss stack up against, say, an injectable like Ozempic in a similar population? Well, it's always tricky comparing across different studies, But for context, one study showed Ozempic at its highest dose in diabetic patients led to around 6% weight loss.
Okay, so orforglipron in this trial seems potentially a bit more effective for weight loss in this specific group, or at least comparable.
It appears that way based on this data, yes. Though again, direct comparisons need head-to-head trials.
Absolutely. Now, efficacy is one thing, but safety and tolerability are just as crucial. What did the trials show there?
The most common side effects were what we often see with GLP-1's gastrointestinal issues.
Meaning things like nausea, diarrhea.
Exactly. Diarrhea, nausea, indigestion, some constipation, vomiting, generally reported as mild to moderate.
Was it bad enough that people stopped taking the drug?
Some did. The discontinuation rate due to adverse events was highest in the top dose group at 8%.
8%. Is that considered high, low, or sort of typical for these kinds of drugs during trials?
It's generally within the expected range for this class of medication, especially during dose escalation phases and trials. Yeah. It wasn't flagged as a major concern.
Okay. And any other specific safety signals? I know liver safety has been an issue for some other oral GLP-1s in development.
That's a really important point. And no, thankfully, the orforglipron trial did not show any liver safety signals.
That's reassuring, especially given, as you said, a competitor drug, danuglipron, was actually halted because of potential liver issues.
Exactly. So the lack of a liver signal here is definitely a positive finding for orforglipron.
So overall, the safety profile seems familiar, consistent with the injectables like Ozempic or Mounjaro.
That seems to be the case based on this phase 3 data.
Yeah.
Mild to moderate GI issues being the main thing, which aligns with the known profile of injectable GLP-1s.
Right. Which brings us to a major potential advantage. This is a pill, not an injection.
Yes, that's a big part of the appeal. A once-daily oral pill that offers a level of convenience and accessibility that injections just don't have for some people.
There is another oral GLP-1, Rybelsus from Novo Nordisk, right? How does orforglipron compare?
Good point. Rybelsus contains semaglutide, the same active ingredient as Ozempic. But orforglipron is different. It's a small molecule drug.
And what does that mean practically?
Well, one key difference is administration. Rybelsus has quite specific instructions, needs to be taken on an empty stomach with just a sip of water, wait 30 minutes before eating, drinking, or taking other meds.
Ah, okay. That can be a bit inconvenient to manage daily.
It can be. Orforglipron, being a different type of molecule, doesn't seem to have those same food and beverage restrictions. That's a potential advantage in real-world use.
And being a small molecule, does that affect manufacturing or cost?
Potentially, yes. Generally, small molecule drugs are less complex and cheaper to produce than larger biologic molecules like those in many injectables, or even Rybelsus.
Okay. And they often don't need refrigeration either.
Correct. That could be a significant factor in easing production and supply chain issues, which have sometimes plagued the injectable GLP-1s. Less cost, easier storage and distribution.
That could really help with availability, especially if demand is high. So what's the timeline looking like for this drug? When might we see it on the market?
Eli Lilly has laid out their plans. They're aiming to submit Orforglipron for regulatory approval for weight management globally by the end of 2025.
End of 2025 for weight management and for type 2 diabetes.
They plan to seek FDA approval for the type 2 diabetes indication in 2026.
And are they anticipating supply issues if it gets approved, given the history with similar drugs?
They seem confident they can manage it. Lilly has stated they expect to be able to manufacture and supply it globally without major constraints. They even mentioned having built up a substantial inventory already.
Proactive planning sounds like. That's good news for potential patients. The market for these drugs is huge, isn't it?
Absolutely massive. And analysts predict continued strong growth, especially for weight loss drugs. Orforglipron's peak sales potential, combining both obesity and diabetes, is projected to be very significant.
So if approvals go smoothly, when could it realistically be available? Sometime in 2026.
Potentially, yes. If regulatory review goes well, maybe the first half of 2026 isn't out of the question.
It really highlights the push towards more user-friendly options, moving from injectables to oral forms.
Definitely. And the fact that it doesn't need refrigeration could be particularly important for access in middle and lower income countries too, where cold chain storage can be a bigger challenge.
That's a great point about global accessibility. What are experts saying about Orforglipron? Any initial reactions?
Well, one obesity doctor who does consult for Eli Lilly described it as potentially transformational.
Transformational, strong word. Why?
Their reasoning focused on that combination of convenience, a globally distributable, non-refrigerated pill with efficacy that seems comparable, at least based on this data, to injectable semaglutide like Ozempic.
So the potential to reach more people easily with similar effectiveness?
Exactly. But of course, there's always the reminder from other experts, like medical correspondents, emphasizing the holistic picture.
Meaning the pill isn't a magic bullet on its own.
Right. They stress that while these drugs are great tools helping with cravings, slowing stomach emptying, they work best as part of a bigger plan. Healthy diet, regular exercise, those lifestyle factors are still crucial.
Absolutely. Medication as a tool alongside lifestyle changes. That's always key.
It is. So wrapping up, the emergence of an effective oral option like Orforglipron really feels like a potentially significant advancement.
Yeah, for treating both type 2 diabetes and helping with weight management, the convenience factor alone is huge.
A once-daily pill, no major food restrictions based on what we know now, promising efficacy, and a manageable safety profile. It could really broaden access.
And with regulatory submissions planned for late 2025 and 2026, we might see some shifts in how these conditions are treated in the fairly near future.
We should also expect more detailed results soon. They often present the full data set at major scientific meetings.
Right. That will give us an even deeper understanding. Well, this has been a really informative look at Orforglipron.
Definitely an interesting one to watch.
Indeed. And if you, our listeners, found this overview valuable, please do give us a like and subscribe to the channel for more analyses like this one.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone.
Yes, thank you for joining us for this exploration. We'll see you next time.